Welcome back, y'all. The House is a movie from 2022 made for Netflix for TV, and it's an anthology movie. There's 3 parts that all center around a house. Not the same house, but different houses. All of these 3 parts are made by overlapping teams. Some have the same special effects people, some have the same writers. They all have different directors, and there's overlap in style for that reason, but they tell very fundamentally different stories with different messaging and also different species. The first is starring people in some kind of 1800s, early 1900s type setting, maybe. The second part is featuring a mouse person who is also a real estate developer trying to sell a house after like getting it ready to be sold. And the third one is about a cat lady, literal cat who's a lady who is trying to like renovate the house and have a good life in it. And she's functioning as the landlady to other people, to other cats living there. The way the stories flow is very differently from each other, and the last one is definitely the most positive one with the most positive ending. The first one is with the poor family, or they start out as a poor family. They live like on a land somewhere. It's the parents, a young daughter, and a baby daughter. They have family coming by who are very critical of the man of the family, and when they leave, he gets drunk and goes into the forest to just kind of like get rid of his frustrations and sorrows. And he ends up meeting somebody in the forest in very creepy, mysterious circumstances, kind of like a laughing figure. And when he returns home, he's like ecstatic and tells his wife, hey, there's this rich man that wants us to come live in his house. There's some representative coming by, and the representative tells them all about the stipulations regarding this. They have to move to the big house up a hill. This rich man has bought all the surrounding land. Their old house is going to be demolished. But they also seem to be fine with this because, hey, we're moving up in life this way because we're moving to a big house. All of our needs are being taken care of. Pretty good deal, right? But as they move there, they start to like act a little weird, at least in the eyes of their children. Their daughter, Mabel, becomes the main character as she goes around and discovers weird things happening in the house. Like suddenly the stairs are gone, the house is constantly being changed and developed in like the layout. Different parts of the house no longer connect or start connecting again in weird ways. And at some points she discovers they can't escape anymore, and her parents constantly being told things to do by this rich man that seem very weird. Like her dad dresses up in a way that makes him look like a fancy chair. Her mom gets dressed in what looks like drapes, and she constantly has to sew more drapes, and she gets very focused on that. And her dad is constantly staring into the fire, and that is the only thing that he really does. And constantly she's running into like these groups of people who are like building on the house, and they don't respond. They just stare creepily. The only other person in the house is the butler, who seems to have some sense of what is going on. And she finds him crying. He's just some actor. He's completely out of his mind because he also is stuck in this house that is constantly changing. And Mabel realizes that she and her little sister have to get out. And when she tries to convince her parents, she discovers that her dad has actually turned into a chair, and her mom actually has turned into some drapes. And they beg her with like the last bit of sanctions that they still have for her to flee. And she does. She managed to kind of like get to like crawl through some space and go down a rope and get away from the house as it is burning up. That is quite a powerful ending. And the transformation, actually kind of horrifying. Now, the second part of the anthology with the mouse developer, he has a less horrific story, at least not in the scary kind of sense or body horror kind of sense. It's more gross in a way. Like, he's constantly trying to like improve this house, and he keeps finding loads and loads of insects, bugs, vermin, cockroaches, silverfishes, every kind of thing you can think of, just kind of like crawling into like the spaces. The foundations of the house are just completely soaked through with these things. He gets like a bunch of people coming over to kind of like look at the house, see who is interested in buying actually it, and he gets like champagne and all sort of like snacks and everything, and it kind of like goes wrong on like various levels. Most people aren't interesting except for this weird old mouse couple with a really tall lady and a really fat old man, like almost ball shaped. They are like the weirdest possible mice. They have like funny voices and everything. And they constantly keep telling him, oh, we are very interested in buying your house. But they really overstay their welcome and constantly keep impressing upon him how interested they are in the house. And that kind of like keeps him going, kind of like keeps them kind of like, keeps him like somewhat more okay with him, I suppose. Like, they sleep over in this house, they bathe, they stay for hours watching the TV, days, and he goes nuts. He ends up in the hospital. They end up coming over to pick him up, bring him back to the house. They invite all of their family over. It goes very much out of control, to the point that the mouse mouse developer is kind of going nuts himself. And by the end, you can see the house just crawling with all of these other weird mice, and the main character, the mouse, comes crawling out of the oven and has completely gone feral, just like the other mice, and then crawls back into his hole, into the darkness. And then it cuts to the third part, which is about cats. Logical progression: people, mice, cats. There is this cat lady who lives in a house on a small island, and she's trying to renovate it after like some torrential rains have kind of like increased the water level, and things are going kind of like wrong. And she really, really needs money. That's the one thing that she's constantly worrying about. And she still has two other people living there. She constantly tries to get them to pay rent. One of them keeps paying her in fish, and the other one keeps paying her in pretty rocks that she says have crystal healing powers or something like that. Then there's the boyfriend of this other cat lady, the kind of like hippy-dippy one, comes over. His name is Cosmos. He says that he's lived with like Tibetan monks, and he seems at first like, oh, he actually has some skills that could help in renovating the house. And then he starts breaking it up to like tearing it up the floorboards, turning them into a ship for one of the other cats so that they can just sail away. Which, of course, our main character really doesn't like. Things keep kind of like escalating until everybody's like left the house again, and she's left alone with her house broken apart, sinking further and further. At some point, she finds like something that the other cats have left behind for her, and she finds that there is something like a lever that transforms her house. There's like a little thingy that pops out of the roof that has a steering wheel on it and a little rotor, and it basically turns her entire house into a boat. Her entire island becomes a boat. And when she accepts it and lets go of her perfect vision of her house, of her dream, the other cats on their boats come back, encouraging her, and they all go sailing off together in their boats. And that's kind of like the least downer note of all of them. It's kind of like a good note, like a note of acceptance, like, hey, this cat lady really needed to let go of the past, needed to let go of this dream that she had invested so much in, but clearly was sinking, and readjust her expectations for her life and try to see everything through new eyes. That's kind of like a good message in some sense. I'm not sure if this was the best way, but it was very well told and was very pretty, and the animations are all great. All of it, I think, is stop motion animation. Is it stop motion animation? It is stop motion animation. So together together with Wendell and Wild, now we have 2 stop motion animation movies covered in this Horror Hysteria series. Yeah, do I recommend this? I suppose they're kind of like viewable on their own, each of them. They're interesting. If you're interested in stop motion that is kind of creepy, very different tones, but kind of like has one that kind of like ends on like a happy tone. Each of them is like 30 minutes long, so an hour and a half in total. Yeah, you can do that pretty easily. I would recommend that. So that is The House from 2022.